Well, hi everyone. Welcome again to Magic Mike Moments. And today I have a really special guest, Alyson Williams. Hi, Ali, and thank you so much for coming on today.
Hi, Sal. It's my pleasure and privilege to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
You are an all-round superstar, and I totally love you. So I can't wait to have a bit of a chat with you today. So here's a little bit about Ali, just as an intro. So in her previous life, Alyson was a teacher. For 12 years, she taught first adults, then high school students. And after that, she became a public servant, retiring 2019, 25 years with the Department of Defence. Whoa, that's a long time, baby. So Alyson is a Master Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or an NLP coach, and you've probably heard of that, an accredited advanced extended disc practitioner, a hypnotherapist, and a Bling angel. So why coaching? Because all through her adult life, Alyson has been informally coaching and mentoring family, friends, and colleagues. Following the collapse of her comfortable life in 2013, she overcame several major challenges to now live a life of purpose and fulfillment in her new career as a coach. Wow, love that, Al, and I really love stories. So why don't you share with us a little bit about your journey, maybe some of the challenges that brought you to where you are now, particularly around what happened in 2013, just 9 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how quickly time has flown. So as I said, I have had a very comfortable life all my life. I used to say I had a really boring life, and then, can I swear, shit hit the fan, and I thought, bring back boring, right? So, happy childhood, where you had enough money to do what we needed to. So money was never an issue. Loved by both my parents, the youngest of 5 kids. Yes, I was bullied a bit by my older siblings. They would tell you I deserved it because I was a spoiled brat. Some of which is probably true, I must admit. But, I used to grumble because I had sort of like six parents, all of them telling me what to do, right? But as much as they did that, I also, every time I went on holiday, I had 6 people giving me money to spend. So there were ups and downs. And I think that's me as well. I'm always a Pollyanna, pretty much an optimist. Life is always something to be grateful for, play the be glad game. And so, I had a wonderful childhood, a wonderful life. I got married a bit later in life, but that was fine. Had a happy marriage for the most part. Had my kids a bit later on. Pigeon pair.
Got 2 kids?
Yeah. So a 27-year-old son and a 24-year-old daughter, whom I love to pieces. And, life was fine. Again, with my ex-husband, we were both on a really good wage, so money wasn't an issue. We got on really well. In fact, for the first 10 years of our marriage, people used to say, oh my God, you just still act like you're in love.
Wow.
And then, I don't know, life happens and pressures come along. And then 2013 was the year my whole life fell in on my head. I had a fabulous relationship with both my parents, but especially my mum, who was my mentor and role model. And she died in 2013 at the start of the year. And one of the gifts, she's given me lots of gifts, she was an amazing woman, was, she'd always say, treat people well while they're alive, don't cry. And she said, don't come and cry at my funeral if you haven't treated me well while I'm alive. And so happily, that was the way it was. I wasn't the best daughter in the world, but I was the best daughter I could be. And we both sort of knew how the other one felt. There was nothing left unspoken. So there were no regrets. I wish I had, or I could have been more, whatever. None of that rubbish. And that was brilliant, except that, obviously she wasn't here anymore. But I felt a sense of peace that, what? I had a fabulous relationship. I was so lucky. And now I don't have any guilt, or I wish I had, kind of no regrets.
Yeah, great.
And that was the start. And then I'd had this horrible boss that I'd had for about 6 months or so. And, long story short, I ended up with work-related stress. And I was at home for 3 months because the stress had brought on mini strokes. And I didn't even realize that they were mini strokes at the time. Yeah. And I didn't have a diagnosis for the longest time. So I was always hyper anxious. And I was always a chilled kind of person. As I said, very optimistic. And, I do believe in God, and I was a practicing Catholic for a long time. Now I haven't had time or whatever, which is a bit naughty. But anyway, and so, I was completely worried all the time. They also found out that I had a narrow left carotid artery here in my neck. Right. And so that kind of worried me because I always had tingling up my left arm, which I still do. So of course, my imagination went into overdrive, and I thought, oh my God, what if I'm having an aneurysm or a blood clot? I know nothing about medicine, as you can tell. What if there's a blood clot sort of shooting up my arm into my brain, and then I drop dead? So, and of course, when you're in this heightened state of emotion, there's no such thing as logic.
Yep.
So I was constantly anxious. From somebody who'd been very chill, suddenly really being anxious all the time. My son was away on his gap year. My daughter was by herself and feeling quite isolated. And we lived out of I'm in Canberra. We lived out of town. So that was making him a bit more isolated as well. My mother had died that January. All this happened in Feb. My mother had died in January.
Whoa.
So my daughter was really missing her because they were very close. Her brother was away, so she was missing him. So I had all this extra pressure, my daughter's wellness as well. And then in the middle of all this, my husband of 25 years says, he's leaving.
Whoa.
Now, the marriage hadn't been great for a few years, but I never thought he'd leave. There'd never been another woman, or for me, another man, or another woman for that matter, but there'd never been anyone else for either of us. And so I just thought, the pressures of work, and I know he'd had quite a lot of pressure at work.
Yep.
And I just thought, when the kids move on, we'll just find our way back to each other. So this was a real bolt out of the blue. And I just felt my whole world crashing in on my head.
Yeah. Three things. It's always in threes, right?
Yeah,
Dying,
exactly.
really unwell, the stress, 3 months off work, and then your hubby leaving. Whoa, what a year.
Yeah.
Man.
And then, of course, I then had to leave a job that I really loved because of this stupid boss. I thought, I've been here the whole time, 10 years I think 15 years in the organization, no issues at all, just in that organization within defense, no issues at all. This bloke comes in for 6 months, he causes, chaos, and I'm the one who has to leave a job where I've been kicking goals.
Yep.
But of course, because of the structure, it kind of made a lot more sense organizationally. So I felt a bit let down there. Anyway, so there was all this crap happening. And that's when I realized, and I mean, this is just obviously a short sort of summary of what took months to unfold.
Yep.
And it was a horrible, horrible time in my life. And I said, bring back boring. So that was really where I had no support. My mum had died. My best friend had died the year before. We didn't tell any of the family because we didn't want to tell my daughter because she was quite vulnerable. So we thought we'd wait till my son got back from his gap year. The little bugger decided to extend his gap year. So that kind of prolonged everything. And of course, for that reason, we were still staying in the house together because we couldn't afford financially to move out. So we were kind of living this weird life. But on one hand, we were now getting along much better than we had before, because I guess we'd come to this sort of decision as we were going to be moving on. And I mean, my ex-husband and I were friends because we worked together, and that's where we met. Right. So we were friends before we sort of got into a romantic relationship. So we kind of went back into that, which is kind of nice because as I said, I had a great relationship with both my parents, and I wanted my kids to have that as well. And I wanted my daughter to remember the benign times, even if not happy times.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my life falling in on my head. And then after I moved out from the home or whatever, there was a weekend where they're offering personal development. And because I'd lost a bit of self-confidence and a whole lot of other things, I decided I wanted to go along. I've always been into personal development.
Yeah.
And the guy, it was from the Coaching Institute in Melbourne. And the chap at the front of the room was a relatively young bloke. And I thought, I really like what that young man is doing. I used to do that because I started my teaching career with adults. And I thought, I want to do that again. So I signed up and I thought, this is going to be, a win-win, because I'm going to learn about improving me and being a better me. And I'm then going to be able to empower other people to do the same for them.
Amazing. So when you were a teacher, were you in a particular subject, or what sort of teaching were you?
Well, I'm a Melbourne girl, so I originally went to what used to be Frankston Teachers College,
right,
which is part of Monash. And in those days, they had teachers' colleges for primary school teachers specifically. Right. And it was very intensive teaching, learning how to be a teacher, right? They taught us how to teach. In fact, my ex-husband was also a teacher, high school teacher, and he used to say, which I thought really summed it up, primary school teachers are teachers of children, where secondary school teachers are teachers of subjects.
Right. Yeah.
So that was me with my training. But when I graduated in 1980, there were no jobs for teachers. In 81, there were no jobs for teachers, primary teachers in Melbourne. And I remember one of my friends who was a couple of years senior to me at Teachers College saying if he didn't get a job, he'd go and join the army as a second lieutenant. And I didn't know what that was. So after being home for a couple of weeks or months, I got tired of having to rock up to the CES as it was in those days and tell them, how I hadn't got a job and what I'd done. I thought, forget this, I'm going to go see the army. Thank God they weren't recruiting. I would not have been a good fit. But all the recruiting was all co-located. So I went to Air Force, and they actually had a program for foreign students with English. So even though, Air Force itself wasn't recruiting, which again is a godsend, because I'm not meant to be in any kind of institution unless it's either marriage or mental institution. But anyway, marriage didn't work out too well. So I would not have been a good fit in the Defence Force. But they had jobs for civilians teaching Southeast Asian students about Australia. It was a familiarization program, because a lot of that at that time Australia was looking towards Asia, not England anymore in terms of foreign relations and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So we were bringing in students from Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands to as part of their military training, but a lot of them didn't have exposure to Australia. This was in the 80s, so the whole globalization thing hadn't really taken off at that point. So they weren't used to the Australian accent. And in those days, the Australian accent was a lot broader. And I used to have a joke about how Aussies spoke through their teeth because they didn't want to swallow any flies, right?
I've never heard that before.
Well, we used to say that at the school. And so they wanted people with a broad range of accents, Australian accents. And I think it was also good PR that, I was a woman and I was obviously a migrant as well. So that was all part of the mixing pot that's Australia. So I worked there for, I think, 4.5 years, which is where I met my ex-husband. And then, my contract finished, and then I thought, okay, what will I do now? Again, there were no jobs for primary school teachers, but because I'd worked in this area with foreign students whose first language wasn't English, I went and got a graduate diploma in teaching English as a second language, and that got me into a secondary school. So I got there as an ESL, as it's called, a specialist, English as a second language teacher specialist. And then I ended up, because I was able to teach up to year 8, according to my qualifications, I was then able to teach English and social science. And being a Catholic school, I ended up also teaching year 9 and year 10. Wow. So that was, and I also taught adult migrants English in the evenings at one point. Wow. Just for fun.
Yeah. And this is why I do this, because everyone's got stories, and it's made you who you are today, right? And so then after you've had all these calamities, but, based on your life experience, everything that you would have acquired over that really has helped you with where you're at now, because you've done, so many courses and qualifications. I think the latest was just the hypnotherapy, wasn't it? Just recently.
Well, I've been doing the hypnotherapy over the last year and a bit. And in fact, hypnotherapy is also part of my NLP. So with NLP, I've done hypnotherapy in there, but this was one of the women that I networked here with in Canberra here, is a beautiful soul. And she's a bone therapist. And one of the ladies that she does bone therapy with was actually doing hypnotherapy. She was offering hypnotherapy training, because that woman is a woman from India. She went to India, learned all this stuff, brought it back to Australia, got it accredited here, and then decided to teach it. And I thought, why not? Because I had done with the stuff with the NLP, but I wanted a bit more breadth and depth. Yeah. So I've now got a diploma of clinical hypnotherapy, which is another piece of paper.
Yeah. And I think this is the perfect time to take things a little bit further, dig deeper and dig deeper. I'm digging deeper into the energy side of healing, and it's just like amazing, incredible. But that leads me to my next question. So what is your superpower, do you think? What is your magic? What is the thing? Why are people drawn to you specifically? Because, you're saying you've got all these bits and pieces. Your toolbox is enormous. You've got one of the biggest toolboxes I've ever met, right? So what is it specifically that people are drawn to you and work with you?
Well, it's interesting you say, why are people drawn to me? Everybody I meet keeps telling me, even on Zoom, that I have this fabulous energy, that I've got a really lovely, warm energy about me, which I have never really considered one way or the other. But in terms of my superpower, I think my superpower is being able to see in individuals their gifts, their special qualities that make them who they are, the things that they don't see themselves, the things they take for granted, just screams out at me, right? And I'm sitting here with goosebumps because, Sal, you know, you and I are mutual admiration society because we love each other so much because we can see the gifts in each other.
Yeah.
And that's what I find with other people. I'm just able to see right through to their soul, to who they really are. Now, maybe that's overstating it. Maybe that's putting tickets on myself, but it's amazing that I feel when I say something like that, that I feel like I've really hit home. And the person says, oh my gosh, I've never realized that. Thank you. And it is a gift that they feel they've been given. And I love that.
It makes people feel special. And I think that's actually one of your superpowers, is making people feel special, because your nature is really beautifully warm, loving. You're very approachable, non-judgy on any level, and you're able to tap into the true essence of the person that's there. So, you know, life gets in the way, and often we go through life with our armor up and doing our autopilot stuff, and we forget to stop and smell the roses, and you can tap into that straight away. It doesn't matter what's going on in people's lives. You can go so quickly, you know. It's not like years of therapy. It's your special gift. I think it's amazing.
Well, I think it's because I'm so analytical, which is part of both a curse as well as a gift, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm often in my head too much, but because of that, you know, I'm always sort of seeing beneath the surface, particularly when it comes to people. And I believe in very much, you know, saying it as I see it. So if I think somebody looks gorgeous, I'll just say, oh, you look absolutely beautiful. And the old days people used to say, what do you want? Well, I don't do that. I don't do fake bullshit. You know, if I think you look absolutely gorgeous, I'll tell you. And if I think you don't, I won't say anything. You know, but I'm not into just flattering people for the sake of flattering them or making them feel good because they need to feel good. No, it's really about what I see in a person. And that just makes me feel, it's a bit selfish because it makes me feel happy too.
Yeah, it brings you joy, right? Because you're being honest. And that's why you calling yourself the empowerment and self-love coach, because you really are. You've run a number of courses. I've joined some of them. Fantastic, you know. And it's just it's almost like you're sitting back in the chair and you're just going along with it. It's not intense. It's beautiful energy, and you always attract the similar people, right? Like attracts likes, the whole law of attraction. So
why we've met.
And I should mention that we're both Bling angels, and so, you know, we're very excited. We started on that journey last year together, and your specialty in the Bling angel is all around this self-love and empowering, and I'm really exciting. So with your niche or your particular clients, what do you think, in your opinion, is the biggest facing your client?
Well, the reason I say self-love is because a lot of people, for a start, they misunderstand what self-love is. I know when I was growing up, if you loved yourself, that was a bad thing. It meant that you were really conceited, which is, you know, a nice way of saying you're up yourself. You're really conceited, you had a big head, all those sorts of things. But people don't seem to realize that self-love is part of being comfortable with who you are, loving yourself, warts and all, knowing that even though you're human, even though you will muck up, you're still a worthwhile human being. And the other thing, people get mixed up between self-care and self-love. They are two separate things, and I feel really strongly about this. Self-care is like having a massage, you know, having some me time, doing all that sort of stuff. But self-love is owning who you are, all your crap and all. And that's what I really want to give my clients. I want to give them the ability to be comfortable in their own skin, to see themselves as they are, accept themselves as they are. Self-acceptance.
100%. I have this saying, there's nothing more attractive than a confident person. When you're just allowing to just love yourself for who you are, and as you say, warts and all, it's just so attractive when you can see that, you know, and people can be their authentic. Could you imagine if the whole world could step it up, let you, and just, you know, be comfortable with who they are? You know, all we can do is live in the present moment. What's happened in the past is in the past.
Exactly.
And really grow from it, right, in a positive way. So yeah, well, actually, that's one of my questions. Over your life, what have you let go of? How have you stepped up, and how have you been more of yourself? How have you found it yourself? I mean, you've had that life experience, right? So, as you were doing it, let go of judgments. What is it that you've really that's really helped you step
Well,
up?
it's funny, you said before that I was non-judgy, but let me tell you, I used to be the most judgy person in the whole world.
Really?
I'm still a little bit like that with myself, even though I try and practice self-love quite strongly. I don't always make it. I have my ups and downs, but now I have that awareness where I'm able to say, "Oi, girl, what are you doing?" Right? But the judging in terms of other people, I've let go completely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased with that. But really, for me, I came to forgiveness, which again, being a judgy person, I found that sometimes forgiveness was quite hard to do. And as I said, I was brought up Catholic and whatever, but that was, something that was sort of taught to me rather than something I practiced.
Yeah, I think out of all of my wellbeing stuff that I do, I think the hardest thing is forgiveness. That's personally for me. You just have to rise above it. And, we see so many cases in the media of situations. And, one that springs to mind all the time is that those beautiful kids that went out for ice cream and the guy, whatever happened, but it was just dreadful. And the family was plastered all over the TV that they rose above, they chose to forgive. And, dig deep to do that. Kids, it is something that is so, it can be very challenging, but after doing it, because it's beating yourself up, right? You're the one that's suffering, not the other person.
As I say, forgiveness is the gift you give yourself. And especially when you do have, mostly it's for a good reason that you've got this hurt and this anger.
Yeah.
And, wanting revenge is the most human thing possible. But I used to say to my daughter, hate, it's actually Socrates said that hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. I said to my daughter, hate only hurts the hater, because the person you're hating doesn't know that you probably don't even exist in their life anymore or on their radar. But for you, you're living in it constantly and you're reliving it. You're carrying it with you like this big bloody stone in your chest.
It's weighing you down. Yeah,
get rid of it.
Yeah.
And for me, I actually got to forgiveness through gratitude. Now, as I said, my husband and I, ex-husband and I, there had never been another person and for either of us, blah, blah, blah. But I found out that he actually did leave because he met up with an old girlfriend. And as I said, I'm the only person I know who's been left for an older woman.
That's hilarious. But when you were going through it, I've got to be honestly say, maybe there's cases, but most of my friends that have split up, it's always because of someone else. And I generally find, and I couldn't be hammered for this one, but most men don't leave unless they've got a better option, right?
Exactly. And funnily enough, that's exactly what he did with me as well. I don't want to go into that whole history because it's not my story as such, but his current wife now, they're engaged at uni, and she left because she got a scholarship to the Sorbonne. Why wouldn't you go to Paris, when you've got a scholarship there? So naturally she left and she broke up the rearrangement. Right. And he was quite devastated by that. And I get that so leaving me was, apart from the fact that our marriage was a bit rocky at the time, that was him finding his youth again. That was him, finding again the young man he used to be and reclaiming his youth. So while I was there for an older woman, it was because he was finding his younger self. Not that matters one way or the other. He seems to be happy, and I'm really glad for that. Yeah. And we're friends because, of course, we co-parent, and the forgiveness thing. I actually felt betrayed because I found out later on, and he did come clean and tell me, which I appreciated, that he'd actually made arrangements, or he'd actually made an approach to her before he left. Typical bloody man. Sorry to all the men watching. And I remember saying to him, you've replaced me before I've even left. But anyway, so I felt really betrayed, and that was something I had to get over. But in the meantime, my daughter and her dad hadn't had a really happy kind of relationship anyway. It wasn't really bad, just that he had all his issues, including health. He'd have this huge thyroid issue, and then he was, work was really unhappy. So he's always angry. In fact, he had huge anger management issues. And so there was always tension at home. And she was about 8, I think, when this first started. And I remember he used to say to her, you need to be mindful of your dad, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I've been making excuses for him since I was 8 years old. And so there was always that tension in their relationship. So she was very angry when he left. And he was so busy living his new life while he was still with us that he wasn't going to things that, her netball or her choir or whatever. And that was making him really angry, which I think was fair enough. But anyway, it wasn't for me to, put more crap on her because, as I said, his first wife, because he had 2 kids from his first marriage, she taught me I would never hate anybody more than I love my kids, because she made it all about the kids were her kind of, weapon.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm never going to do that. Now, happily, my kids were a lot older than her kids were when we divorced.
Yeah.
I used to say, look, Katie, instead of looking at all the things your dad is not, let's look at all the things he is. We always had money for food. We had beautiful homes. We always had lovely clothes and toys and things.
Yeah.
We went on holidays. We didn't abuse us. We weren't beaten. He wasn't a drunk, blah, blah, blah. So doing all this gratitude stuff without realizing it, I was doing all that, as I said, being the Pollyanna.
Yeah.
Look at what's working. And that was, again, thanks to my mum in many ways, that I got to realize how lucky I was, because I know he really did love me. And I know I had my part in because, it takes 2 hands to clap. Yes. So I know that I had my part in making the marriage unhappy for him as well. I'm not perfect.
We're all perfectly imperfect, right? That's another one of my sayings. We're perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you really just exude gratitude and positivity. And so I can see that linking in with the forgiveness big time. And it's interesting, growing up, I've always said to the kids, hate is too strong a word. It's like too strong a word. I always just used to say that. And now, of course, I'm working with, the energy of words and the power of words. And, it's, we want to say with that lightness, the positivity and the forgiveness. So that, with everything that you've been doing and all of your, acquired knowledge and experience and wisdom, what are your 3 tips to help people as they, progress through life and, deal with the ups and downs and everything else that comes at us?
I don't know if you're talking about words, because that's always my first tip. Stop saying negative things to yourself and about yourself, right? So, as I said, I still have my, who's perfect, right? I usually have some smart aleck comment like, I'm perfect, I'm perfect, only 90% of the time. But obviously that's not true. So I still have the odd time when I'll do something wrong. I go, oh, you idiot. I go, no, I'm not an idiot. I just made a mistake. Yep. But all those little things that we say to ourselves, I always say to people, start with that. Stop saying that. Start being aware of the mean things you say to yourself. Things you wouldn't say to your girlfriend or your child or your whatever. Why would you say that to yourself, right? So stop saying that mean talk.
Yeah.
Other words I hate, other words I dislike, should, could, would. All those blame, guilt, shame things, get rid of them. They do not serve you at all. Use empowering words like I can, I choose to, I want to. I want to do the vacuuming, or I choose to do the vacuuming rather than I have to, and I don't like vacuuming, is a whole different energy in your body. And as we know, and you would know too, like energy has, I think, 528 hertz it gives off in terms of energy, but fear gives off 100.
Yeah.
So when you're operating, it's either love or fear. You're operating in one of those two things. Yeah. So when you're operating from love, it comes from you feel much better in your body.
You feel lighter. You just feel lighter. Yeah.
Exactly. So choosing to vacuum because you want the place to look nice or be clean is much better than having to vacuum it because it's dirty, And I mean, you can even see my face, the way the way you hold your face, depending on the words, makes a whole difference to how you feel inside.
Absolutely, 100%. Because I've just had a house full of guests for a number of days, and I'm the vacuuming. I just had to go and vacuum up in town, and I just get it done because it was all part of the process, and it wasn't like it's like because it's fun because I've got more people coming. It's exciting stuff. So what's tip number 2?
Yeah. Sorry, you asked for 3, and I talked too much. So the second thing is identify your core values and live by them. Because when you live by your core values, you feel happier in yourself.
Yeah.
You only accept certain amount of behavior from yourself and from others.
Yeah.
You then change the way you show up in the world.
Yeah.
And you change the way other people show up for you.
Yeah.
So live by your true values is your second. Identify them first and then live by them.
Yeah.
And the third one I would say is, take time out for yourself. It's not selfish, because when you take time out for you and you then be the best you can be. When you're the best you are, then you can be your best self for others. So it's not selfish at all. Not that you do it for others, you do it for yourself. But what I'm saying is they benefit it too. You're not like you're actually depriving them. You're giving to you and you're giving to them.
Yeah, love it.
And that self-care thing is one of the first steps towards self-love. Because if you do feel that you can take yourself off for a massage, or you can sit down with a cup of tea and just, have some me time and read for 15 minutes or meditate for half an hour, whatever, then you feel better in yourself. And then, you're showing other people that you value yourself and they value you too. And then you're in a better headspace because you're coming from love again, instead of from anger or from annoyance.
100%.
Those are my three things.
When you value yourself more, it reflects in your finances as well, because it's the value of yourself and the value in your life, and it's just law of attraction once again. So your value goes up, and ka-ding, so does your wallet. Fantastic. So your language, stop with the negative words to yourself, choosing empowering words, your core values, identifying and living by them, and then putting yourself first, taking time out for you so you can be a gift to others. They are three fantastic tips. So Ali, at the end of the day, what are you actually most passionate about? There's so many things here, but really, what's the key that really drives you, gets you up out of bed, gives you the joy,
Well, one of my core values is justice. So I'm really big on justice, and respect is the other one. And both of those together kind of come under that empowerment thing. Yeah. And for me, that whole empowerment is about I like to say, without wanting to sound again too grandiose, I want to change the world one person at a time.
Yep.
And I believe the best way to start is with women, for a whole host of reasons. Women have been put down for so many years, through the centuries, in fact, probably since time began. But more importantly, women are the hub of the home. So women are the ones, generally, depending on how the woman is how the family runs. Women influence their children because they're the role model. They're doing all the, and I know this is talking sort of a bit kind of, old fashioned, like stereotypical 50s or whatever, but I think it still happens. And I think even with co-parenting the way we have it these days, with mums and dads working together, still, I think statistics show that women are still doing, more than 50% of the home duties and that kind of thing. But anyway, so getting back to women, I feel that when you've got women who are empowered, and even in these sort of, families where both parties are kind of co-parenting and sharing the household duties, etc., it's really important. Because when women are in this position of being empowered and being confident in themselves, that flows on to everybody. It makes the home a happier place. They're role modeling to their children how they should be. Yep. They're role modeling to their husband how they should be treated, etc. And I think in that way it spreads through society. And that way I believe we can change the world. So empowering women is important to me.
100%. Plus, as women, energetically, we're the nurturers, we're the the mothers, and it's just, that's our energy. The female energy is nurturing, loving, caring, warm, and it's just.
I think you articulated that far better than me, Sal.
No, not at all. But it's just, it's with the way that life is now and the setups at home. There's just something about a female energy, right? It's just what it is. It's like there's something about a male energy. It's anyway. So down the track, how would you like to be remembered? What's your sort of legacy?
I think my legacy would be, I'd like to have felt that I've made a difference, at least to one person. Because I know as a teacher, that was always something that was important to me. And I don't mean from any big-headed, like I don't want a statue or anything, or that kind of rubbish. But it's just that I've made a difference to at least one person in the world. Be that stone that causes a ripple.
Yeah.
I love what Maya Angelou said, is that, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So to me, how people feel is really important to me. And I want to make them feel good about themselves. I want to make them feel so good about themselves that they go out and they're able to be the best version of themselves and make the changes that they want to be in the world.
Yeah. And that's all about empowering people, right? It's just
absolutely.
Nutshell. I just absolutely adore you, Ali, and we were so on the same page. And it's been, I met you, would it be a year ago or 2 years ago now at Business at Breakfast Networking?
Yeah, I think at the start of 2020.
It's definitely that was my lifesaver. And then I did a couple of your courses, which were fantastic. And then we actually met in Canberra, that in the coffee shop. That's right, that garden place. And then now we've become Bling Angels together. So I'm very much looking forward to catching up with you.
Likewise.
And having a few laughs over a few days in training with Daryl coming up. That's exciting. So and now, how can people get in contact with you? I'll put the links in here. Best is website, email. What's your sort of...
Probably the best thing is by either phone, a text, or Messenger, Facebook Messenger. I'm not on Instagram. And I'm not very active on LinkedIn either. So probably either an SMS or even a phone call. Give me a call. I'm a bit of a chatterbox, you may have gathered. Or Facebook Messenger. Just reach out. I'd love to do a one-on-one. As a Bling Angel, we offer Bling Angel card sessions, and I offer a complimentary 20-minute one. I'm sure Sal does too, but I don't want to be, getting her into trouble and committing her for something she might not be up for.
No, not at all. No. That's what I said. We've got massive toolboxes, and yours is the best I've ever met. And if people haven't tried the Bling Angel card readings, I highly encourage you to contact Ali, because they're really good. Like they really take you down a rabbit hole and come with a sort of a superficial, and it just unravels everything. It's really amazing.
And the thing is with me, because as I say, I talk a lot, and I never just, even when I'm doing a Bling session, I don't just do Bling cards. All my tools come with me. It's all part of who I am. Yeah. And when I do coaching, I do the NLP comes in, the hypnotherapy comes in. So it's all part and parcel.
And that's what I love working with you, because that is your magic. It is your essence, because you've got everything and you know which tool to bring out to really uncover that next, unpeeling that the layers on the onion, taking it deeper and deeper and deeper to what's really going on. Well, Ali, it's been such a delight having a chat with you and, learning more about you, because I love stories. This is why I do it, because it's made you who you are today and formed your values, from everything that you've been through. I really love you talking, so in alignment with everything you've said today. So thank you very much.
I love hanging out with you, Sal. So it's always a pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity to have a chat on your Magic Mic moments. I feel very blessed.
100%. Well, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. And as I said, I'll put in Ali's contacts down in here, and I'll always just put a like and write some comments. That would be really helpful. And other than that, we'll see you again next week. So thank you, and I'll catch you soon, Ali.
Bye.
Bye.